What's up? Welcome back to the Metal Ed Car Show. In the time of recording this video, last night, Tesla showed off the brand new Robotaxi. The Robotaxi is designed to be a completely self-driving car that doesn't even come with pedals or a steering wheel. But today I want to discuss whether this is the way to the future or a dystopian hell in which we don't need. But let's get right into it. As mentioned last night, Tesla showed off the new Robotaxi, which for a car that's made to be autonomous and have no features which allows you to be able to drive the car, I do find it to be a little bit weird that it's a two-seater hatchback. Personally, with something like this, I would assume it would be a four-seat sedan or more or less a Tesla Model 3, which is completely self-driving. But nonetheless, I do think it's actually a really nice-looking car and something that Tesla hasn't really ever done before. Because yes, there has been the Tesla Roadster and the Tesla Roadster concept, in which never happened, but they've never made a two-seat coupe before, which I've been yelling since the beginning of the Tesla Model 3 that there should be a two-door option for that car because it would look beautiful. Which indeed, with the Robotaxi, in certain angles, this thing looks fantastic. Also, along with its fantastic side profile, it also gets butterfly doors. Now, this isn't the first Tesla to get fun doors. As we know, the Model X has its falcon wing doors to be a bit more of a usable gull wing door. And for this car, I see it as kind of a completely unnecessary step, but I am glad they took it. And as mentioned, it's a two-seater hatchback. As you can see, this thing has no rear window, and if you actually open up the rear end, it's a massive luggage compartment. Honestly, this would almost make more sense as a ute. Not knocking it, think about it, Tesla Model 3 ute. I know this isn't a Model 3, but I think deep down under the skin, this is probably a Tesla Model 3. Anyway, it has a massive storage compartment, which I think is kind of a weird move. I think you could have made that half the size, given it rear seats, and made it a bit more usable. But it's kind of a wacky approach, and all things said and done, I'm not against it. What I'm kind of against is the styling. As I said, the side profile on this thing is amazing, and I think it's super cool that it got butterfly doors. But I think the front end is just a little bit wonky. It makes it look a little bit unproportionate. And I think the rear end, taking direct influence from the Cybertruck, was a weird move. Now, the Cybertruck's probably the most controversial vehicle in modern history. Either you love it or you absolutely hate it. There's pretty much no one who's in between on that. So seeing Tesla take inspiration from a vehicle that's known to be extremely controversial and put it into this is either a completely weird move they probably shouldn't have done, or the exact bullshit you'd expect from Elon Musk. But we're still in the very early stages of actually knowing about this car, so there's some details we just haven't seen yet. We don't know what motors are going to be in this, what batteries they're going to be using, or what its range is going to be. Personally, I think they'll be going for a long-range setup, and that's for three reasons. The first reason is it's completely autonomous. Now, you'll be able to program it to go to a supercharger station, but I think if you don't need to with this thing, it's to make your life a whole lot easier. Adding to that, number two, one of the big features Tesla's pushing with this thing is it is wireless charging. Now, this isn't the first car we've seen wireless charging with. The first one in my memory we've seen this with is the McLaren Speedtail. Now, the McLaren Speedtail is a hybrid, but to charge the EV setup of it, you actually needed to have this charging pad. And in the McLaren, you actually needed to bring the charging pad with you wherever you went so you could charge it. Now, McLaren didn't make a trunk that could actually hold this. You had to put it in one of the seats. Now, I don't believe Tesla's going to be making that mistake. The car has so much more space than a Speedtail. There's going to be space to put your charging pad in the Robotaxi. Now, here's where the charging bit gets weird. Either what Tesla's going to need to do is start installing charging pads at supercharger stations, or you, the owner, is going to need to bring the charging pad with you wherever you go to plug it in. Which, A, I don't think that should be on the owner. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And B, if it is a charging pad built into the supercharger stations, that's not something you can use everywhere. You see, I live in Canada. Canada gets cold. Cold weather brings snow and ice. I don't believe that charging pads would actually survive up here, especially if all these park lots would be covered in like salt water and whatnot, that I think they would just fry immediately. Maybe not immediately, but I think they would break over time quickly. So maybe having a longer range to get it back home where you charge it in kind of a safe manner would be a good idea. And the third reason I believe it's going to be more of a long range setup is this car won't ever be going fast. Like, sure, you will be doing highway speeds, but you don't have an accelerator pedal. The instant torque and instant power EVs provide won't really be a factor here because you don't have control of it. This thing will go as fast as the speed limit in the area will allow, and no faster. So putting in a motor which has a lot of power would not make sense for this thing due to it's literally never what the car is going to be doing. I don't think it's going to be dangerously slow, but I also know for absolute fact it's not going to be going super fast. Unless Tesla puts some sort of self-driving ludicrous mode in it, which sounds like a funny but awful idea, but also I wouldn't put it past them. Now the claims they've made towards this is Tesla wants this in production by 2026. Now Elon announced that and immediately kind of joked to himself that he's always been a little ambitious towards the timeframes he wants to get the cars out at. So they're saying 2026, but it's going to be a couple of years late. Let's just get that out of the way right now. The other one is the price. Tesla's saying this thing will start at about $30,000, which is pretty much exactly what they said for the Model 3 and something very similar to that for the Cybertruck. The Model 3 didn't start at that, the Cybertruck didn't start at that, and I'm just going to go ahead and say right now, this also won't start at $30,000. But here's the big problem with this car. Canada does not allow fully autonomous cars on the road. You can't sell them here. And this thing, as it is right now in Canada, how Canada is right now, will not be able to be sold here. In America, it's a little bit of a different story. There is a handful of states that do allow fully autonomous cars. So there are a handful of states where you could actually sell this thing. Now, I'll say right now, I don't know the European rules on fully autonomous cars, so I'm not going to talk about them, but this is where this car no longer makes sense. The Cybertruck's available in North America because Canada and America don't actually have any sort of pedestrian crash safety standards, which is why you can actually buy them here. There's some loopholes for Europe, I know, but you can't actually legally just go buy one. So despite it was a smaller market, there was still a market to sell the Cybertruck here. This thing, though, is a little bit different. If you have all of Canada that can't sell this thing, and less than half the states can't sell this thing, I'm sorry, what's the point of this? It's not like it's an impractical supercar that costs $10 million that you can't really drive. It's a car that's meant to be used, but it's being brought into a market which you can't really use it. Now, as technology goes forward, laws may change and you might actually be able to use this in the future. Now, Tesla actually admit on the Jay Leno's Garage YouTube channel that they actually tried to change some American laws to get the Cybertruck out exactly how they intended it in the first place, but couldn't. So I'm going to go ahead and just guess right now that they have already tried or are trying to get more autonomous cars on the road and get those laws changed so they can go sell more cars. So they've got a couple of years before they want this car in production, so they've got a couple of years to figure that one out. Now, do I believe autonomous cars could work on the road with the general public? Yes. Technology is going to move forward, the sensors are going to get better, it's going to be able to figure out more weird situations than maybe they can right now, or they could a couple of years ago. And I do think it can adapt with society on the road. Would I buy one? No. We're gonna wrap the video up here, but I wanna know, what do you think? What's your opinion on completely autonomous cars? Would you actually buy one of these things if your province, state, country, whatever allows you to do so? Or are you on my side and this just doesn't interest you at all? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, enjoy the video scene. I tend to post a few times a week, and I'll see you later.